Before we get started, can everybody just mention in the chat box where you come from and just like the name for your medical school, if that's okay? Amazing. So we have people coming from Palestine, from Jordan, Egypt, Yemen. Wow, from everywhere, basically. Excellent. From India too. Amazing. Okay, so it seems that the Facebook Live is not working, but it should be fine. We have enough people coming in. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. So I'm gonna just share my screen and then I'll introduce the speakers for today. We have a fantastic panel of junior doctors from Palestine who have been through this experience, and they've done a lot of electives in mostly UK and USA. And we ask all the attendees if they don't want to ask any questions to just mute themselves, if that's okay. Can you see my screen? Just like, you know, yeah, perfect. Excellent. So, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Osaid Alser. I am the co-founder of OxPal version 2. And today we are going to talk about international opportunities for medical students. The webinar will be tailored to kind of students from Palestine, but we'll try to kind of answer any questions that are not specific to Palestine because we try to be more inclusive. And so, and then we will have Natalie today. She will do kind of her presentation in a few minutes. And Natalie Marzouqa is the junior doctor from Palestine. She graduated from 𝐏𝐻𝐻 Medical School, and she is now working as a junior doctor in London. And we'll also have Beesan Warsana, who's a junior doctor who's now in Palestine working as a research fellow at the Palestinian Neuroscience Initiative. And she's done a lot of kind of electives in London and also in Boston. Okay, so I'll start my presentation. If you have any questions, just put it in the chat and we'll try to answer them. And we'll have a Q&A session at the end of the presentations. Okay, so just wanted to kind of introduce OxPal in general. OxPal is basically an online kind of initiative between clinicians and medical students from University of Oxford and their counterparts in Palestine. And we basically try to kind of support medical education in Palestine by offering online lectures, tutorials, as well as research fellowship. So if you haven't heard of OxPal, please, email us, subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our social media accounts. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a bit about my experience doing electives, observerships, virtual sub-internships in the UK and the US, and to kind of answer specific questions about electives. For example, what elective means, why, how, and when to do an elective. And then we'll have a Q&A session at the end of my presentation very briefly, and later at the end of all presentations. So I graduated from medical school in Palestine 2016, and before graduation, I did an elective at University of Oxford in 2015. And following my graduation, I also did an observership in Jordan at the Islamic Hospital in Amman. I also did observerships at Harvard, Mass General Hospital, and at University of Minnesota back in 2016. And recently, a few months ago, I did sub-internships, and they were all virtual. And this is a new concept, and feel free to ask me any question at the end about it. And that was at Rush Medical Center and WashU in Missouri. So just to kind of give you some context about these international opportunities, so we'll start with elective. Sometimes it's called clerkship or sub-internship, which is basically a hands-on experience, usually for undergrads. Observerships, and sometimes called clinical attachment, especially in the UK, visiting physician programs, are basically hands-off experience for postgraduate, meaning that you are not allowed to kind of take history, do physical exams, or scrub in any surgery. Externship, it's basically a mix of elective and observership, which is basically hands-on experience for postgrads. And any of these opportunities can be either clinical, meaning that you kind of deal with patients, or research. Especially there's one at Johns Hopkins University where they offer research electives. Why do we need to do electives? It's not mandatory, as I mentioned. It's an elective. It's basically, you opt in to do it. But some universities require you to do at least one elective. Basically, I divided the reasons into medical and non-medical. I'll start with medical, and basically the main thing is to improve your practical skills, especially if it's hands-on, and also to get some updates from around the globe, and especially coming from Palestine and other low to middle income countries. It's important to kind of experience something else where technologies and advances in medicine are, and also kind of to know your level and to see how you can improve yourself by not necessarily comparing yourself to others, but to kind of to be inspired by other people who've done a lot of things. Also to kind of do research projects during your time. Sometimes it can be challenging, but I know some people who manage to do that. In the UK, you can do clinical audits, which is a bit different from research, and it's mostly kind of UK specific thing, and sometimes to participate in conferences. Also, it's important to kind of do electives, because sometimes, and actually most of my friends who went to, for example, to the UK, they return back to the UK to do their postgraduate training. The same applies to the US and other countries. And also to prove your interest, especially if you are not sure about a specialty. For example, you're not sure about surgery and you do surgery, and then you experience what surgery looks like, especially in the country where you want to train at. Also, non-medical, of course, it's an opportunity to kind of exchange knowledge and culture with other people, and also to make new friends and connections. And I still kind of communicate with my friends who I met during my electives. And also to have fun, enjoy your life, and visit sightseeing places. And most importantly, to improve your language, especially for those who are not native speakers, not necessarily English. I know a lot of people who went to Germany and they improved their German language, and also they kind of that made it easier for them to train there. How to do electives? You can either apply through a website or hospital or university hospital website, or you can easily just communicate with a potential supervisor. You just send them an email, and I'll show a template that I created for myself to communicate with potential supervisors. Because we are OxPal, and we are a link between Oxford and Palestine, this is an example of elective course offered by Oxford. It's very competitive, but I know a lot of medical students from Palestine, from Gaza and West Bank, and even from neighboring countries who manage to go there. And from my understanding, there is some sort of a quota for Palestinian medical students, which makes things easier for them to kind of get accepted. And I did that, did my elective there on Oxford, as I mentioned earlier. It's one of my best experience, and it kind of helped me to return back to Oxford to do my master's, and I really recommend it. So this is just a template kind of that I created for myself. You can read it later when you watch the recording, but basically you introduce yourself and then you express your interest, and you need to mention something very specific about the hospital or the university or even the supervisor. Sometimes it's a good idea to kind of read about their research projects and to mention that, because that will attract them and make them read your email and reply to it. And then just like mention, add your signature. Something very important that is although it can sound obvious, but I know a lot of people who don't use kind of professional email accounts. So I would really recommend, just like use your first, last email and then at Hotmail, Gmail, etc. But don't like, for example, I mentioned here hacker 2002, for example. I know a lot of people who use kind of nicknames when they create emails, which is not a good idea, I would say. If you have a university kind of .edu email, that would be better, I would say. But if not, then yeah, personal email should be fine. Now, basic requirements to do electives. Most places require you to fill out an application form, have your CV ready, and as I mentioned, you have to write a formal email. And then sometimes they require 2 or 3 recommendation letters from your supervisors back home. Some places offer their elective for free. For example, Oxford is one of the places that offer electives for free. A lot of places, especially in the US, requires applicants to pay fees. And also in the US, they require insurance. It can be health insurance or malpractice insurance. And the way to find it is just you Google it, and you'll find a lot of companies, and you'll pay kind of a few dollars for, like 1 month or 2 months, etc. Sometimes they require you to kind of write a cover letter or motivation letter, which is basically you summarize your interest and why you want to do elective at that place, but it's not always the case. So this is just a guide that I found really useful. It's from UCLA, and how to write your CV, how to write a cover letter. And I kind of explained that in details in one of my kind of YouTube kind of videos. It's not kind of promote my channel, but it's just like a good idea to have a video summarized in Arabic on how to write CV and cover letters. So a lot of people, have some concerns about electives because it can be very expensive. But fortunately, especially for people coming from Palestine, I listed some of the organizations that can support electives, and some of these supported my electives. For example, 𝐓𝐞𝐚𝐦, 𝐼MID 2000, and a lot of other kind of charity organizations. And some people do fundraising. It's up to you. I didn't do it myself, but it's one way to get money to do an elective. Now, when do you need to do elective? It's up to you and your university. For example, at my university back home and most medical schools in Palestine, they do it during their 5th year summer semester. And of course, you have to kind of communicate with your university to make sure they are happy with it. Here are some useful links to kind of get to know more about electives. For example, this is for Oxford. This is for an internship at the WHO. And most importantly, just Google it. If you are interested to do an elective at, for example, King's College in London, just Google it, elective course at King's College London, and then you just follow the link. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'll move now to Natalie to talk about her experience. In the meantime, if you have any question, I'll try to answer them in the chat box. Natalie, the mic is yours, so feel free to share your screen. I think you are muted, Natalie.
I think she's with us right now. We lost her.
Okay.
Natalie?
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Perfect.
Just make me a host and I can share my screen.
Yeah, just 1 second. Okay.
Right. Okay, so I'm just going to talk briefly about where I did my electives, and I'll start with some tips that I find useful when you do these kind of things. So I graduated from Al-Quds University in Palestine, and in my 5th year, I chose to do 2 electives in the UK. The first one was in London, in Hammersmith Hospital, and it was in cardiology. And the other one was in Oxford, and it was in psychiatry. So when we want to choose an elective, some of us know what they want to do in the future, but others are still not sure. So how would you choose your elective in that case? I would say, first of all, think about your interests and try to group the specialties in groups of your interest and do one of those. If you are still very interested in everything, I would say choose a specialty that exposes you to all other specialties. For example, in radiology, you can work with every other specialty. In emergency, you actually see all kinds of patients. So that is something to consider. Also, location. My talk does not only apply to the UK, also applies to everywhere else. Where do you want to travel? Where are you interested to see? Just keep that in mind. Maybe you can do both things at the same time, do an elective and when you travel, see a new country. The cost. Osaid spoke about this a bit. I would say even places that actually ask you to pay for the elective, you can always ask them if they have exceptions for students like you. Don't be shy to email them and ask. Once you have these ideas in mind, it's time to contact doctors. When we talk about the UK, I always find it a bit easier not to contact HR themselves or the university itself. I would look for doctors specifically. So I would say you've chosen an interest and you've chosen the city. I would Google, for example, cardiologists in London, and then I would find the specific names, find their emails, and email them directly.
Natalie, I think we can't hear you right now.
After you do that, the doctor will connect you to people who are responsible for the paperwork, and they were lucky enough not to have to do that. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, much better.
Yes?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Yeah, we can hear you. But
Okay.
I think you stopped sharing your screen.
Yes. So that is when you apply for a visa, and then after you get your visa, you apply for, you start booking your flights, your accommodation, and all that. Now, also, don't be shy to ask the university or hospital themselves if they have any accommodation for you, or if they provide support in that sense. Moving on to how to actually, so now you've gotten an elective and you're going, how to actually make the most out of it. Things to think of before you go. So one thing that I find very important is to prepare. I'm not just talking about medically preparing. Also, when you want to go to a specific city that you've never been to before, or if you've been to the city but you're not sure how to go around it, transportation, about costs of certain things, just to have an idea. Also have a goal in mind. Like, when you go to that specific specialty, what do you want to achieve by the end of it? And also, non-medically, like, are there things that you would like to see? Are there touristic sites you would love to explore? Keep all that in mind when you go. Also, don't be shy to ask. Sometimes it's okay not to know what you want out of things. If you go to a consultant or a specialist that you work with and you ask them, I'm interested to do a project, an audit, or a research project. What do you recommend I do? What is something that you find really interesting? And take it from there. Also be involved. If there are any other medical students or other people doing electives, just ask them what they do on the regular. Do they present? Present with them. Do they have meetings? Go with them. Also network. Always stay in touch with these people because they can help you a lot after your medical school if you're trying to do projects or specialize in that specific place. And most importantly, never forget to have fun. That's the most important part. I've left my email here if any of you want to email me. Feel free to use the template Osaid made and email me in that sense so I can give you feedback on them if you want. And yeah.
Thank you so much, Natalie. That's great, amazing presentation as always. We have a couple of questions, so I'll try to answer them in the chat box, and then we'll have Beesan to share her experience with us. Later on, we'll discuss more in the Q&A session.
Okay, thanks, Osaid and Natalie. I think I'm going to speak in Arabic with some English to balance things because there is a lot of Arabs here and I think we have to balance between you and Natalie and me. So, مساء الخير أو السلام عليكم. راح أحكي عن تجربتي الخاصة. اسمي بيسان وراسنة. تخرجت من جامعة القدس طب عام 2019 صيف 2019. خلصت سنة الامتياز العام الماضي. خلال فترة دراسية عملت 2 electives أو هم 3. الاثنين electives كان واحد بلندن وواحد بأكسفورد وبعدين في هارفارد. which says يعني هاي المعلومة بتحكي إنه ممكن نسوي أكثر من elective إذا إحنا عملنا experience معينة وبعدين لقينا إنه هاي experience هي مش the best وبدنا نكتشف جانب ثاني أو نشوف حالنا بمحل ثاني نجربه وإحنا لساتنا students قبل ما نروح على الاختصاص. رح أركز شوي على كيف نجيب فرصة الإلكتيف ومن وين أو كيف نفكر فيه. زملائي غطوا جزء كثير كبير بس رح أروح على الهايلايتس اللي أعتقد أنها ضلت ما غطيناها أو ممكن أحكيها بأسلوبي الخاص. الإلكتيف بالأول حكى أسايد شو المهم فيه وليش مهم إنه نسويه. أعتقد استنادا لتجربتي التجارب اللي طلعت عليها والمتوقع من أي تجربة إلكتيف إنه الانفايرمنت الجديدة والبيئة الجديدة اللي بنتعامل فيها مهمة كثير في التجربة للإلكتيف. فمهم نختارها بما يتناسب مع إيش إحنا حابين نكتشف وإيش حابين نعرف وين توجهنا ممكن يكون. لاحقاً راح أحكي كيف ممكن نحدد هاي الأشياء بشكل سريع. بلس إنه بيساعدنا نكتشف الانترست تاعنا. برضو عمل هايلايت أسيد لهي النقطة، وهاد إنه كيف بقدر أقدر إذا أنا صح مهتمة بالنيوروساينس وبدي أكمل بعلوم الأعصاب، أو مهتمة بعلوم الدم وبدي أدرسها، أو مهتمة بالباطني أو بالجراحة. فبنعمل elective وإحنا لساتنا students عشان ندخل ونصير engaged أكثر بهاي الفيلدز. إذا شفنا حالنا إنه we enjoy it وإحنا we can find ourselves بالمكان بنكمل فيه. لو لا ممكن نفكر نروح لتجربة أخرى أو نغير الدايركشن تاعنا، لأنه خلال الميديكال سكول، خلال مدرستنا أو الجامعة، بنعيش بكثير ستريس معين هو الدراسة، بس بنجرب تجارب كثيرة كمان وبنشوف تخصصات مختلفة. التخصصات هاي يعني لأنه بناخد مواد مختلفة بكل إشي، سواء majors أو minors أو بناخد university electives. بس الإلكتيف بعطينا هون تجربة مختلفة، وهي إنه إحنا بنعيش الجو وإحنا مش خايفين من علامة. وهذا الشيء مثلا عند طلاب جامعة القدس النجاح أزهر، أو بغض النظر معظم الدول العربية عندنا هذا السيستم. فبنعيشها وإحنا بدنا ننبسط فيها، بدنا نروح عشان نتعلم، بدنا نحضر اليوم المحاضرة عشان نعرف أكثر، مش عشان خايفين من علامة، وعشان نشوف إيش ممكن نستفيد. وهذا الشيء مش موجود في كورسز الجامعة العادية. زائد إنه الليفل أوف انتجريشن بيكون مختلف أصلاً، لأنه بتكون تعمل elective مش دوام رسمي حاطط لك إياه الجامعة. أنت داخل على سيستم مختلف اسمه أو الديزاين تاعته مختلفة، قادرة إنها تعمل لك اندماج أكبر مع elective specialty أو الفيلد اللي أنت اخترته، بغض النظر إيش هو. في other important points لإله، وهي إنه كثير نتعلم شغلات كثيرة وجديدة. بمعنى إحنا بالعالم العربي بشكل عام في عنا limits لكل knowledge أو التطبيق الطبي اللي إحنا بندرسه. في كثير techniques مش موجودة عنا، diagnostic techniques، في treatment techniques، في الابروتش نفسه تاع diagnosis، كيف تعامل المرضى، كيف تقابلهم، تحكي معهم. كله هذا مختلف بين العالم العربي وبين العالم الآخر اللي بدي أسميه، إذا بدي أحكي على دول عالم متطور بهاي الحالة. فإنه نتعرف على هاي الأشياء ونرجع نجدد عقليتنا، إنه مش بس موجود بالكتب، لا بنقدر نشوفها، بنقدر نتعامل معها. فهاي برضه فايدة مهمة. بنقوي الCV تاعتنا أكيد، لأنه it's experience. اللانجوج اللي إحنا بنتعلمها دايماً في المدارس وممكن نستعملها بالمحاضرات، وبالمحاضرة إحنا بنستعمل الفولي scientific English language إذا بدنا نحكي. بنتدرب عليها كيف نتعامل فيها بالشارع، بالناس اللي حوالينا، بالمحيط، إذا رحنا على مسجد، رحنا على كنيسة، رحنا على السوبر ماركت. فبنصير متعودين نتعلم ونعرف قديش إحنا ضعاف أو أقوياء، وإيش بلزمنا عشان نصير أحسن، ووين في نقاط ممكن نحسن حالنا فيها، حتى بهاي بما يتعلق باللانجوج. النتورك عامل مهم جدا، لأنه إذا أنت مقرر ترجع على هاي الدولة بعدين، لازم تثبت النتورك تاعتك وتوسعها من خلال الإلكتيفز. وتبدأ بشخص بس بالإلكتيف نفسه ممكن تتعرف على أكثر من حدا وتوسع. وفي شعور آخر أو شغلة أخرى هي بحب أعرج عليها هون وأعملها هايلايت، وهي تجربة الغربة اللي قد تكون لأول مرة عند أي طالب طب. ممكن يضل أول 3-4 سنوات بالجامعة مش مسافر ولا محل، عمره ما سافر، طلع من التوجيهي دخل جامعة القدس أو النجاح. فبتكون عنده طموح إنه أنا بدي أطلع أتخصص برا. طب أطلع أتخصص برا معناته إنه رح أعيش لحالي وغربة. طب عندي أي خلفية أو براكتس للموضوع أو متخيل؟ لا، بس اللي موجود هو إنه بسمع. فالأحسن إنه نعيشه في هاي الفترة اللي هي قد تكون شهر، شهرين، أو 3 أشهر. الإلكتيف على حسب قديش كل جامعة بتعرض أو كل مستشفى. بتجرب هاي التجربة، بتعيش لحالك، تتحمل مسؤولية لحالك، حتى لو كنت بسكن جامعة. ولكن في هاي الحالة في مجتمع جديد، بتشوف هل المجتمع زي ما أنت بتعتقد أو لا. ممكن تسمع في ناس كثير كانت بتعتقد إنه مثلا خلينا نحكي بشكل عام أمريكا هي الدولة الذهبية، وإذا أنت رحت عملت اختصاص فيها رح يصير عندك راتب حلو وحياة حلوة وتأخذ كل الأشياء اللي نفسك فيها. بس في أشياء هاي لو سمعت من برا، في أشياء ما بتقدر تحكم عليها إلا لما تجربها. زي فكرة إنك تكون بمجتمع بيحكي غير لغتك، بمجتمع مختلف الكالتشر تاعته عن الكالتشر تاعتك، وكيف ممكن تعيش لحالك في محل أو مكان عالم إحنا بنسميه مادي نسبياً بالنسبة لنا. يعني ما في نكون ماشيين بالشارع نوقف حدا نسأله، أو نروح زيارة عند حدا بيقرب لنا أو هكذا. فهاي شغلة حلو نجربها عشان نعرف إحنا قادرين ولا لا، وإذا مش قادرين كيف بنقدر نشتغل محلنا عشان نصير قادرين بعدين بالمستقبل. Okay, I'm going to next slide. Yeah. هسا كيف بدنا نحضر للإلكتيف تاعنا؟ صرنا سنة 5 خلصنا رابعة، بين رابعة وخامسة أو حتى بين 5 وسادسة اللي هو غالباً أكثر سنتين بصير فيهم الإلكتيفز. وين الإلكتيف بده يكون وفي إيش؟ بشكل عام في أول 4 سنوات بيكون في أخذ الشخص الميديكال ستودنت ايديا عامة عن شو الاتجاه أو شو التوجه الطبي اللي ممكن يحبه، هل هو جراحة ولا باطني، إذا باطني أي جزء من الباطني. بس ما بتكون في الفول بيكتشر أكيد، ما بتكون صورة totally clear، وإنما بتكون شوية بداية تشكل. خليني أحكي، في ناس بيكونوا محظوظين إنه من بداية دخولهم للطب عارفين إنهم يروحوا بتوجه معين، ولكن طبيعي جدا إنه تدخل حامل فكرة معينة، تدخل بدك تصير جراح وبعدين تشوف إنه لا انبسطت بالعلوم الباطنية أكثر فتصير بدك تأخذ إشي باطني. تحب لفترة نيورو ساينس بعدين تصير لا بدك الريسبيراتوري مثلا whatever. ف بيكون في توجه لو بسيط واضح، بدنا نمشي ونشوف هو صح ولا مش صح من خلال الإلكتيف. فإحنا عارفين إيش الانترست تاعتنا جزئياً مش توتالي أكيد، وين البريفيرد ميديكال سكول تاعتنا. هسا قصدي بالبريفيرد ميديكال سكول هي الكونتري، في ناس بيفضلوا يروحوا ألمانيا، في ناس بيفضلوا أمريكا، في ناس بيفضلوا عندهم حب استطلاع لبريطانيا، في ناس عندهم أقرباء في ألمانيا فبيفضلوا يروحوا على ألمانيا عشان هيك لأنه في عندهم فاميلي ذير. في ناس ممكن تحب تجرب الثقافة أو مثلا البيئة الإيطالية فتروح تعمل إلكتيف بإيطاليا whatever وين انترست تاعتك، وين حابب تروح. ثاني ستيب نيجي أوكي إحنا عرفنا إيش الدايركشن أو شو بداية الانترست تاعنا وين الكونتري اللي إحنا حابينها، فنبلش نفتش عن طريق النتورك تاعنا. أكيد بنعرف عنا أصحابنا، أصدقائنا، أساتذتنا في الجامعة، بلس الأونلاين ويب سايتس. الأونلاين ويب سايتس لو دخلنا على مواقع الجامعة فتشنا فيها على الإلكتيف تشانسز، ودخلنا زي ما حكى أسيد وناتالي قبل إنه بندخل منفتش على الدكتور نفسه اللي إحنا بنعتقد إنه ممكن نكون interested بهذا الشغل، فبنكون عارفين مع مين ممكن نشتغل وبأي قسم ممكن نشتغل من خلال الأونلاين ويب سايتس. والحلو بالجامعات اللي بالدول المتطورة أنها بتوفر لك كل هاي الديتيلز من دون ما تتغلب، بس ادخل على موقع الجامعة، طلع على الستاف، طلع على الديبارتمنتس، طلع على الإلكتيف programs بتلاقيها متوفرة. يعني مش بحاجة أنك تراسل عشان تعرف بالضبط، ولكن بتراسل وأنت عارف مين في أمامك. أو ولما بتراسل زي حكوا قبل رح نكتب إشي بيشبه الكفر لتر صغير بإيميل. look for previous experiences. لما إحنا دايماً هاي step رقم 3 لما منفتش أو منلاقي خيار معين، مثلاً فتشت على الأونلاين ويب سايت ولقيت إنه كينغز كوليج لندن في عندهم شيء منيح، فطبيعي نصير نستذكر مين عمل elective قبل بكينغز كوليج لندن، فنروح نفتش ونسأل على طبيعة الإكسبيرينس، do they recommend ولا لا، إيش الأشياء السهلة، إيش الصعبة، إيش الصعوبات، شو الأشياء السبيشل وهكذا. find out your suitable choices. أكيد دايماً إحنا بنفتش ونحط مجموعة من الخيارات وبعدين بنصير نعملها ranking، هاي في إلها benefits وهاي في إلها risk وهكذا، وبعدين وين أحسن محل أنا بدي إياه فبحاول أختاره. دايماً كمان لازم نطلع على requirements والتايم لاين تاعت الجامعات. التايم لاين مختلف، في جامعات ومستشفيات بتأخذ بالشتاء الابليكيشنز تاعت elective الصيف بنفس السنة، وفي جامعات بتاخدها قبل سنتين. فمثلا أكسفورد بيفتحوا هم من شهر 5 لشهر 10 في كل سنة. الابليكيشنز بتكون للإلكتيف من شهر سبتمبر لشهر أغسطس السنة اللي بعدها، يعني فعليا أنت بتقدم قبل بسنة أو سنتين عشان تاخذ الإلكتيف تشانس. فممكن يحطوك على الإلكتيف تاع السنة القادمة وممكن يحطوك على الإلكتيف تاع السنة اللي بعدها، وبالتالي هيك بتكون أنت استنيت سنتين لحد ما أخذت الإلكتيف. فلازم نكون عارفين التايم لاين منيح، متى بيكون في سبمشن أو لا. هاي الفترة بيكون في غالباً هاي الفترة هم مسكرين، ولكن رح يفتحوا أو بيفتحوا بالفترة الجاية، فنضلنا متابعين على إيش الجامعات اللي إحنا انترست فيها. requirements في جامعات مختلفة بالمتطلباتها، وذكر أسيد هذا الشيء. في بعض الجامعات أو المستشفيات إذا بدي أحكي بشكل عام لما نروح، وهي خطوة ممكن ما نكون حاسبين حسابها، إنهم بيطلبوا الريبورتس تاعت الفاكسينيشنز لازم نوفرها، والتايترز تاعت الفاكسينيشن، وهذا شيء بيكون بده بعض الأوراق الرسمية لازم نتبع فيها مع الصحة تاعتنا، أو نعملها أو نعمل حتى الأنتي بودي تايترز ونوفرها بشكل دوكيومنتد. وهذا الإشي قد يكون كوستلي شوي لأنه أسعار الفحوصات هاي عندنا غالي نسبياً، ونكون موفرينه من أول وما نستهين بالأشياء زي دفتر التطعيم وغيره. هاي أشياء كلياتها مهمة لازم نوفرها لما نروح لتدريب في المستشفى. بعض المستشفيات أو الجامعات ممكن تطلب letter of clearance واللي هو حسن سير سلوك، وفي خلو محكومية كمان، فهي أوراق بدنا نفكر فيها لو شفناها ما نستغربها. أحيانا ممكن يطلبوا language proficiency، وفي كثير مرات بنقدر نستغني عنها عن طريق letter من عمادة الجامعة بتحكي إنه الدراسة هي باللغة الإنجليزية الكاملة، وبالتالي بسقطوا عنك هذا الشرط. زائد إنه إذا احتجنا ندفع، لو كان في application fees، لو احتجنا ندفع وما كان عندنا قدرة، ممكن نكتب لهم الwaiving letter waive request، رسالة بنحكي فيها إنه إحنا ما بنقدر ندفع هاي المصاري، وطبعا تكون مكتوبة بشكل بروفيشنال ومرتبة وليش إحنا ما بنقدرش ندفع وهكذا، ونطلب منهم إنه يشيلوا عنا هاي الفيز اللي إحنا لازم نبعثها. بعديها بنكون تقريبا جهزنا الابليكيشن تاعنا، بنعمل سبميت للابليكيشن، بعدين نتبع بالابليكيشن ستيت. وانس اخذنا، لو كان يس الابليكيشن ابروف، ناخذ الاوفر ليتر. كاتبه انا get the offer letter as soon as possible. ليش؟ لانه احنا دائما بنشتغل مع الفيزا، معظم الوقت في مشكله بالفيزا تاعت الفلسطينيه على كل محل، فكل ما كانت ابدر راح يكون احسن انها تكون معنا. اوكي يس. هسا الفيزا كثير مرات بصير في مشاكل الفيزا فبنضطر نلغي الفيزا ريكويرمنتس. في شغله او هون نقطه مهمه بحب انوه عليها، وهي انه 90% من اسباب الرفض تاعت الفيزا بتكون نتيجه عدم التوافق مع الحاجه الماديه يلي لازم تتغطى. الاوراق اللي لازم تكون بغض النظر ايش طلبوا، اوراق رسميه، في اوراق لازم نكون حاطينها دائما حتى لو ما طلبوها نحطها، لأنه ممكن تحمينا من رفض للفيزا. واحد هو الأوفر لتر، أكيد 100% أنت أصلاً رح تقدم الفيزا عن طريق الأوفر لتر. بس اثنين هي البروف أوف فاينانشال سبورت، حتى لو مش طالبين بروف أوف فاينانشال سبورت حطها لأنه بتفرق. وإذا بتقدر تلاقي حدا يكفلك زي أمك أبوك أو حدا بيشتغل بالحكومة مثلاً قسيمة راتب مع لتر مكتوب إنه هو بيكفل، هاي بتحمي من الريفيوزل تاع الفيزا. أو home return approval، شغلة تثبت إنه أنت بدك ترجع على بلدك. لو واحدة من هدول الورقتين نقصوا ممكن ما يخبروك، تحديداً لما تكون تتعامل مع سفارة زي 𝐓𝐞𝐚𝐽. ممكن يرفضوا الفيزا ويبعثوا لك إيش الريفيوزل ريزن لإلها، على الأكيد بيحكوا لك إيش السبب، ولكن ممكن ما يعملوا هايلايت إنه هم بدهم إياها بالأول، بيحكوا لك إيش عندك أوراق سلمنا. الرسالة اللي بتثبت الرجعة على البلد بالغالب لو كنا students بنطلب منهم، بنطلب من الجامعة تحكي إنه إحنا لساتنا يعني completing our study، لسه ما وصلنا سادسة، لسه ما تخرجنا، ولازم نكمل أو بنكمل سادسة بتاريخ معين، ولساتنا students affiliated مع الجامعة، هاي بتحمينا. بعدين we apply for the visa، بعدين visa state إذا yes دغري بنروح على find accommodation، بندور على سكن، سواء كان السكن سكن جامعة أو المستشفى، في سكنات جامعة، في سكنات مستشفى، في سكنات ممكن على Airbnb، ممكن تكون family housing. إذا بتعرف حدا ساكن هناك ممكن تحكي معاه يساعدك وبتحجز طيرانك. لو لا ممكن adjust accordingly، إما تلغي الفكرة أو ترجع تقدم على الفيزا من أول وجديد إذا مددوا لك هم التايم لاين. في بعض الجامعات ممكن تمدد. طيب من وين ممكن ناخذ التشانس تاعت elective؟ من وين ممكن نجيب الالكتيف؟ إما من الويب سايت انفورميشن تاعت الجامعات وإحنا بنفتش، وأكيد لازم نعمل سيرش موسع، أو من خلال النتورك تاعتنا، إنه بنعرف حدا زملائنا وأصحابنا عملوا elective بفرنسا أو إيطاليا، أو بنعرف دكتور معين في له fellowship في موقع معين ممكن يساعدنا. The previous experiences of other students أكيد بتكون مكتوبة أو بيكون الشخص حاطها وفريند على الفيسبوك كان حاطها، فممكن نشوفها ونعرف إنه في chance لإلكتيف بهذا المكان. كيف ممكن نخليها أحسن experience ممكن نعيشها؟ نفتح يعني نكون open لكل شيء جديد، نفتح دماغنا أو خليني أحكي الفلكسبيليتي تاعيتنا منشان نتعلم أي شيء جديد وناخده بهدف التعلم أكيد، مش بهدف إنه نشرب ثقافة معينة. أنا بحكي بهاي الحالة على أشياء إنه لازم نتعلمها أو يستحسن إنه ناخدها ونتعلمها. نعمل engagement مع الانفايرمنت، بمعنى مش بس رايحين عشان نعمل elective، احنا من السكن للمستشفى ومن المستشفى للسكن، هذا مش صح. المفروض انه نروح نطلع نكتشف المكان، نشوف وين في اماكن ممكن نلاقي فيها، لو كنا هوم سيك ممكن نلاقي فيها عرب، لو ما كناش هوم سيك ممكن ندور على students اجانب او اي شيء، بحيث انه نخلق نوع من الانفايرمنت. لو في فيستيفالز كثير بتكون تقريبا بكل شهر، الا ما نلاقي في فيستيفال في مكان قريب وممكن نروح نحضره. observe carefully على كل شيء، من اللحظة اللي بتطلع فيها من البيت لحد ما ترجع أو لحد ما تخلص كل الفترة، لأنه السيستم التعامل مع الناس بالشارع بالمستشفى بكل محل فيه له رولز معينة، ولازم نكون حذرين ونكون واعيين لإيش الاختلافات اللي ممكن تكون موجودة منشان نتجنب أي مواقف إحراج. وانفست بالميديكال نولج تاعيتنا، لأنه في كثير أشياء بنسمع عنها عمرنا ما شفناها، راح نشوفها وراح نتعرف عليها لما نعمل هاي التجربة. ودايما دايما دايما حافظ على النتورك تاعيتنا، ممكن عن طريق واتساب، عن طريق فيسبوك، إيميل، مين في سوبرفايزر إلنا نضلنا على اتصال معه. آخر شيء رح أحكي عنه هو الإكسبنسز، الإكسبكتد إكسبنسز، وعرج عليهم أوسايد قبلي. أحياناً في الادمنستريشن فيز، معظم الأحوال لا، بس أحياناً فيه، وأحياناً قد يكون حتى لو في لمستشفى أو مش أو حتى لجامعة ممكن نعمل ويفينج زي ما حكيت. بالغالب هم بيكونوا إشي بسيط يعني رمزي. البيبر اكسبنسز قصدي فيها الدوكيومنتس اللي بنطلعها والفاكسينز والتايترز، هاي الأشياء كلها يعني إلها شوي اكسبنس. والفيزا فيز، الاكوميديشن هذا إحنا مضطرين ندفعه. الفلايتس أكيد، والبيرسونال اكسبنسز كيف بدنا نعيش هناك. هل في سكولر تشانسز؟ يس، وسيد حكى على الجهات اللي ممكن نروح لها لسكولرز منشان نحصل كفر لإلها. في شغلة سريعة اللي هي فيما لو كنا بنحكي على فيميلز بهاي الحالة هاد اكسكلوزيف، لأنه في كثير جهات بتسعى لأنها تدفع أو تطور عمل المرأة في المجالات المختلفة، في الريسيرش أو بالكلينيكال ترينينج أو بدعم تطور المرأة بالعلم بشكل عام، فممكن نلجأ لها. في وحدة مثلا معروفة أعتقد تمكين، فأعتقد أن المعظم بيعرفهم، لو طلعتوا على الويب سايت تاعهم رح تلاقوا في مجال لأبليكيشن. وفي الأذرز في OWSD كمان ممكن يوفروا هيك شيء. في other institutes تدعم المرأة in particular. طيب هدول questions أنا حطيتهم على السريع، بس إنه هل ممكن أعمل الإلكتيف تاعي بعد التخرج؟ دائما هو طوله اسمه إلكتيف، راح يكون بس خلال فترة الدراسة. بعد الدراسة راح يصير شيء آخر شرحهم أوسايد بالأول. وهل ممكن نعمل أكثر من one elective؟ أكيد yes you can. يس هذا هو. شكرا. إذا في أي أسئلة تكتبوها بالإنبوكس وراح أقرأها وأجاوب عليها.
Thank you so much, Beesan. شكرا كثير لك. We will have now the Q&A session. We have about 15 minutes. So we've answered almost all questions in the chat box. You know, some of the, maybe we missed some of the questions. So if that's the case, please feel free to either unmute yourself and speak, or just type in your question again in the chat box. But before we get any question, I just wanted to kind of answer an important question that many of you have asked, which is basically related to COVID. We all know that because of COVID, many places stopped offering electives because of patient safety and because of all, you know, their concerns. One possibility that you can do is something called virtual elective, or especially in the US, they call it virtual sub-internship. And I've done, as I mentioned, I've done 2 of them recently, and, you know, I'm a graduate now, and although it's called sub-internship, but because it's virtual, they kind of allowed me to do it. Now, the way to get it, you just need to Google virtual sub-internship in your area of interest, for example, plastic surgery. And then, of course, you need to specify whether it's in the UK and the US. I'm not sure about the UK. I haven't seen anything, but in the US, definitely there are a lot of places that are now offering virtual sub-internships. For example, try to see Washington University if they offer virtual sub-internships, Rush Medical Center. I know in New York, Presbyterian Hospital, they do. In California, I think UCI, University of California, Irvine, and there are a lot of other places. So, okay, so we have a couple of questions. I think it would be better if you can try to unmute yourself because I have a lot of questions right now, but we'll try to answer them.
Okay, hi.
Hi.
Hi, Osaid. Hi, Natalie.
Hi, Tariq.
Very well done. I'm Tariq 𝐷𝐿. I'm from Gaza, Palestine, from Al-Azhar University. I'm asking Beesan how she managed to go for 3 electives. However, she mentioned that it can last to nearly 2 years in order to get accepted in an elective opportunity. And thank you.
شكرا طارق. Yes, I said that, but I said this is for Oxford, not for other universities. قصدي في الابليكيشن which means إنه إذا بدك تعمل elective السنة الجاي you might apply this year, you might get elective opportunity in Oxford. That's exclusive for Oxford next year or the year after. That's what I have said. But otherwise, other universities or hospitals, you can get it in the same year.
Yeah, thank you. And sorry for the misunderstanding.
No worries.
I have another question, if possible.
Yes, go on, please.
What about research experience? You have not mentioned, I have not heard you say experience as a requirement.
Okay, so research experience depends on the university, which means you can do research experience in the same university or in the same place you are doing the elective. كيف؟ I have done 2 electives. with 2 electives الاثنين طلعت فيهم في papers. واحد كان case study والثاني كمان كان a new direction أو calling for a change في treatment لمرض معين. فالثنتين بيكونوا عن طريق إنه I said إنه observe everything around. فإنك تلاحظ كل إشي وتكون engaged مع environment اللي حواليك. لو أنت كنت منتبه على الديتيلز اللي موجودة اللي بتصير تقدر تبني connection منيحة مع الدكتورز الريزيدنتس أو السوبرفايزر اللي أنت معها وممكن تشوف أي كيس غريبة تحكي إنه I want to report this أو إنه I want to go further in this وبناء عليها you can take the initiative وممكن تمشي بالموضوع و they will help you أكيد ما بيحكوا لحدا لا لما بيكون he wants to initiate something تحديداً in science. بالعكس بيكونوا supportive بيوفروا لك كل إشي وبيمشوا معك step by step. yes you can do this. فمن هاي الناحية هسا هاي من ناحية لو رحت clinical وبعدين بدك تخلص من clinical research experience I mean clinical research let's say. بس إذا بدك تروح in particular research experience بهاي الحالة ممكن تروح لبعض الuniversities. حكى أسيد على جون هوبكنز بأمريكا ممكن تعطي chance research university. بس other universities you go to clinical in general. في حالة الريسيرش universities هاي بدها تكون university بتعمل عندها white PhD programs والPhD institute تاعها بتعرض إنه ينعمل research experience لأنه بتروح بهاي الحالة للديتيلز تاعت research which means you are going to lab مش patient و clinical research زي اللي أنا حكيت عنه إنه مثلاً عملته.
فهمتك.
Yes.
شكراً كثير على التوضيحات. طب بالنسبة للباست experience for research يعني عندك خبرة سابقة بالريسيرش بتدعم طلبك للإلكتيف.
This is not mandatory. It can add to your CV بس هو مش mandatory. It depends على your يعني الCV تاعتك و how you present yourself للناس أو للجامعة أو المستشفى اللي أنت مقدم عليها elective. بس I say I think إنه ما في direct relation ما بين إنه تكون في عندك research experience وإنك تقدم على وإنك تروح تقدم لكلينيكال. هسا بين research experience وتقدم elective research أكيد راح يكون في علاقة، وأكيد راح يدعم الموضوع، بس still it's not exclusive كمان، لأنه قديش تقدر تكون good in presenting yourself in your cover letter أو بالإيميلز تاعونك راح يكون الشيء supportive. مش معناه إنه إذا ما في عندي previous research experience الشيء مستحيل، لا، you can get it, still there is a chance.
Yes, thank you so much, Beesan, for this.
شكرا.
No questions. Thank you.
شكرا طارق. Like, if you have any question, just, you know, it's easier for us and probably for you to get a better answer for your question. So you can just unmute yourself and speak.
Yeah, Said, I think there is someone who asked in comparison between the US and the UK. سأل الملايين المعتادين عليه دائما إيش ال differences.
I mean, I can answer that, and I'm sure Beesan, you have a lot of experience, and you can definitely.
Yeah, but I think you can do. Yeah.
Sure. So, I mean, basically, both are great. There are differences, I would say. I think the US, if you do an elective, it's most likely it will be more hands-on, meaning that you'll be able to scrub in and many operations, kind of have a closer kind of interaction with patients. But in the UK, you know, it depends on the place, of course. For example, in Oxaid, I did that too. But when I kind of asked some of my friends who came to the UK in general, it was kind of observership. So they were not kind of really interacting with patients. But of course, it really depends on yourself. Like, you have to be proactive. You have to ask clinicians to allow you to do it. You have to kind of, you know, I would say come earlier and leave late, and to kind of show that you are really dedicated and you are really interested in that specialty, and everybody will help you. Everybody will give you a chance to experience what an elective looks like. But again, it really depends also on the place that you are planning to specialize in. For example, if you want to come to the US, I would really recommend to come to the US and do an elective there, because you will get to know the system and you know, make things easier for you when you finish your medical school. Yeah, you know, and you will be able to have your own timeline. But if you do it somewhere else, you kind of shift your career path, and it can be a bit confusing for yourself. Although for me, I did my elective in the UK. I mean, it tremendously helped me, you know, even in my residency application. For example, I got some recommendation letters from my mentors in the UK. But you know, again, it's up to you, and it's up to your you know, interest in that specialty or in specific country. And Beesan, if you want to kind of comment on that.
Yeah, I think I have nothing to do extra. Thanks for your answer. Just I want to clarify another point. It's totally different from this question. Someone is asking about the offer letter and if we have to write it. No, اللي بيصير إنه we apply for the university, then we get the offer letter from the university أو the hospital we applied for. Offer letter هو شيء إحنا بناخده مشان نعمل عليه الفيزا. بثبت إنه إحنا أخذنا offer من جامعة أو مستشفى معينة منشان نسافر عليها. This is the offer letter. الcover letter هي شيء إحنا بنكتبه to present ourselves. بالعادة بيكون بنكتبه على شكل إيميل. We can do cover letter لحالها in a file ونعملها upload على الابليكيشن، وممكن نعملها بس بشكل إيميل ونبعثها، بس الثيم تاعها cover letter إنه presenting ourselves، هاي القصد فيها. Yes, thanks, Osaid.
تمام، شكرا بيسان. Thank you. Do we have more questions?
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Joanna.
Hi. Is it okay if I add something It's not a question.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So my name is Jumana. I graduated from 𝐏𝐻𝐻 University last year in Palestine. And I just wanted to add on, not the last question, but the one before that Osaid and Beesan answered. And from my own experience, I just want to encourage everyone to push yourself and explore like the limits of your elective placement. So even if on your application or it didn't say that you could scrub in, for example, or you know, do any hands-on, that doesn't mean you can't ask. So always like show up, be there early. You know, if you're interested, if you show that you're passionate or interested, I like almost always you would find someone who would encourage you and who would let you do more and give you the opportunity. So yeah, don't be shy, and worst case scenario they would say no, you can't do this, and that's fine. So I encourage you to do that. Thank you.
Absolutely, Jumana. Thank you so much. I think this is great. It is important to show that you are kind of proactive and you're hardworking, because, you know, again, especially if you want to apply to the US, it is really important to get a recommendation letter, because that will help you a lot in your kind of application. And also, when the time of the match or residency application comes, these kind of mentors, they can make phone calls for you and recommend you, and, you know, say, you know, somebody from Harvard will talk to somebody from Chicago who you are applying to, and then they will say, well, Jumana, for example, was an excellent medical student. She showed interest and passion for that specialty, and you should give her an interview. And that happens. The same applies to the UK, but to a lesser extent, because they don't have that kind of communication. But at least, you know, like when you apply for anything else, you can use that recommendation letter to support your application.
Let me just add that I actually did use consultants I worked with in elective for my job applications, and that helped me a lot. So yeah.
Wonderful. I thought it's only the US, but yeah, it's impressive. I mean, it's not like quote unquote wasta.
No, I put them down as references.
Exactly, so they kind of recommend
you can put them under
that.
clinical tutor rather than people who you worked with.
Yeah, true. Yeah, in your CV, it's up to you whether you want to like put it under your work experience or elective experience kind of section. But definitely, it's an important thing to mention in your CV.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have a question.
Any more questions?
Sure.
Can you just please type in the names of the hospital that offer sub-internship in the US, because I didn't hear you well. And thank you for this webinar.
Yeah, sorry. So basically, I did a sub-I at WashU, or Washington University at St. Louis in Missouri. And that was in plastic surgery. But I'm sure they have, you know, opportunities outside plastics. So, and I'll type it in the chat. The other one is Rush Medical Center. So WashU and Rush Medical Center. The other ones is New York. So New York NYP, or New York Presbyterian Hospital. So you just Google WashU and then virtual sub-internship. Now, in my experience, like, you know, the 2 sub-internships that I did were for free. But I know some kind of agencies, like I think AMO Opportunities, that's what the website says, they charge some money. I personally, I didn't do that, and I wouldn't do it, just because, you know, there's no point in paying, you know, to watch some kind of webinars. So I think it's you know, if you can find something for free, just do it. And even if it's not advertised on the website, I would recommend, for example, if you want to do your training in the US at certain place, let's say Mass General Hospital, just email the program director and ask them if you can shadow them virtually, just like, you know, join their Zoom calls, because now most educational activities are happening over Zoom. So you can just ask them if you can do that, and you know, it's a virtual sub-internship at the end of the day, even if they don't code it like that.
Yeah, but thank you. But you also mentioned a place in California. I think you forgot about it.
Yeah, sure. I haven't done that myself, but I'll type it in UIC or
Thank you so much.
no worries. UIC. I think it's University of California, UCI, I think, California, Irvine. Just 1 second. We'll have a couple of questions before we end. So Jumana, will they do sub-I in plastics again? So I'm not sure, to be honest, because they mentioned on their website, you know, they have specific date for it. And the idea was to kind of, you know, showcase their residency program during the time of application to the match. But you can definitely email the kind of the virtual sub-I coordinator and then ask.
Thank you.
No worries. Yeah, I did answer the question about GPA. So yeah, having a higher GPA will help you a lot. But I know a lot of people who had, you know, average GPA or low GPA, and they still managed to kind of get accepted. I think the most important factor that helps you to get an elective is your CV. So even if your GPA is low and you've done a lot of kind of voluntary activities, you've done a lot of leadership kind of activities, like, you know, you are a co-founder of a society at your medical school, and you've done some research, I would say, then yeah, they won't just look at your GPA. But, you know, aim to get a higher GPA, because, you know, that will help you like even for your residency application, not only for your elective in general. But if your GPA and, you know, you're final year and you can't change it and all of that, then it should be fine. Just do other things to kind of improve your CV. Okay. One second, I'm just trying to see what questions. Okay, we have, is the subject of the research important to be related to elective course you are applying to? Not necessarily. Even when you apply for residency, as long as you've done research in your area of interest, even if it's not, like, for example, if you are interested in plastics and you've done something in surgery or even in emergency medicine or global health, global surgery, etc., that still counts, because for medical students, it's normal to kind of be, sometimes, you know, you don't have one specialty in your mind, and it's fine. Most people look at it as something positive in general. But of course, especially when you become, you know, in your final year medical school or during your internship and afterwards, it's better to be focused on one area of interest. But if they ask you, for example, later on, why did you do that? And you can easily justify it because, for example, you are also interested in, let's say, global health. And global health is an umbrella term that can encompasses a lot of things. So that can be kind of a good way to navigate that question. It seemed that we don't have more questions in the chat. But if you do, you can just like unmute yourself and, you know, ask any question. We can wait for a couple of minutes.
I'm just going to add that generally don't just focus on medicine in your life. If you have interests outside of medicine, that usually gives you a plus on all applications, really.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. So we have a question. So if you could turn back in time and get a chance to relive your initial years of college again, what are the things that you would like to do the most? I mean, is there anything you regret? I personally don't regret anything. So, and I'm happy with my kind of my experience in general. But something that I would kind of improve in my kind of career is to kind of get my, for example, USMLE is done earlier. One limitation that I had, for example, coming from Gaza is that we don't have prometric centers in Gaza. I have to kind of leave the country and I have to kind of, you know, live in the UK and do my USMLEs there and, you know, work there and pay for my USMLEs. So I think that's one important thing. And probably kind of to do an elective in the US. So I've done an observership, which wasn't a hands-on, although I got a good recommendation letter. But if I were to choose, I would definitely do a kind of an elective during medical school, for example, 4th or 5th year in medical school, because that would have saved me a lot of time. We'll take just one last question from Philip. Where can I find more details about visa application, proper timing for application? I mean, it really depends on your citizenship. You know, if you are a Palestinian, for example, and you want to apply for a UK visa, you can just easily go to UK.gov, I think, or something like the Home Office, basically. You go there and then just like go to your visa, most likely it will be standard visitor visa, and then check the requirements. Again, it's just Google it, how to apply for a visa to the UK or to the US. And something that I also found very kind of useful is to look at previous experiences. There are a lot of people who kind of record themselves and talk about their experiences getting a specific visa, because that will help you a lot, especially during your interview. And if you have applied for to a good universities, normally they will send you guidelines on how to apply for that specific visa. So they will make things easier for you. So if you are hesitant about the type of the visa and you are not sure about it and you don't know whether you should apply for specific type of visa, just email the elective coordinator, and they can put you in touch with the international office because they know a lot about visas and all of that.
I just want to add that visas usually change from year to year, so it's not always the same type. It used to be a short study visa and then a visitor visa. So just stay up to date to what you need.
Exactly, because when I did my elective back in 2015 in Oxford, it was Tier 4 visa, which is student visa. But now I think it's they changed it to standard visitor visa. So. Okay, so it seems that we don't have any more questions. Thank you so much for, to Natalie and Beesan for kind of coming in and sharing their experience, and to everybody who joined us today and in the last kind of couple of lectures and online tutorials offered by OxPal. If you haven't heard about OxPal, just kind of follow our social media accounts, and I'll type in our website in case you are interested in joining our activities. And yeah, and we'll share also, I think all of us shared our email addresses. So feel free to contact any of us. And thank you so much and have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.